Presentation. See, this is just an example right now. It's not a mistake. Alright, so we jump into the first song. As the deer panteth for the water. We still have our motion background. But, please notice, we started messing around with the text a little bit. You'll notice one big thing that I think churches don't do is think about the placement of their text simply with the background. So what I did was I took the text, moved it to the bottom, took the focal point of the motion to complement the whole thing. It makes sense a little bit more. I think it's a little more legible, and the background is complementing to the text. Same thing you'll see on the old rugged cross. Color sampled the text in this case. Instead of just boring white, color sampled the brown, which is a brown in the text, took it to the top, complemented both pieces so they look good together. When I survey the wondrous cross, this is my favorite change of the ones I did. It's really art at this point. Color sample in the cross, move the text down, kind of change the font type to match the art of the background. Simple changes. This didn't cost a thing. I think it makes a world of difference, though, in the whole outline. Communion, still got my motion, looping motion background. You'll see a trend here, Amazing Grace. I took the text, put it to the top. Again, complemented the motion. The focal point down here, but the text is so complementary. I don't have to think a lot. I don't have to compete a lot. The eye doesn't have to think about what's going on behind the words. It automatically knows and doesn't compete with it. Same idea with how deep the Father's love for us. And then the message. Cross before, during, after, why cross. Simple color sample, move the text over to the left. Those were all simple changes that were free. And they didn't change anything as far as the way you're running a presentation, but based on what your congregation would see, it makes a huge difference to the way they look at it, to the way they're viewing it. I think that's pretty obvious when you look at it. So, flash forward 5 more years. I lost a little bit of weight. Now we got a couple kids, so I'm running around a lot. So 5 years after that, we're going to jump into what I would call the way I'd like to challenge you guys to think about your presentation. Now, it doesn't mean you have to build it this way, and it doesn't mean you have to follow these color hues. It doesn't mean something may not work for your individual scenario. However, what I want to challenge you is to think about it as a presentation, not as song to song. So you'll see what I mean. Let's jump into our countdown. I had to lose the horse because it didn't work in the narrative, but I still got clouds, so that's good. You know, clouds are good. Interesting enough, we actually shot this on an airplane with an iPhone. Isn't that crazy? Wow. Yeah, so now we actually make some good productions with our iPhones these days. So anyway, countdown, which moves into a mini-movie. Same mini-movie, same tempo, same pace. We get done with mini-movie and we move into the song. Now, I want to stop right here with the song. In my three things I put on the screen, I started to tell a story. The first one was the cloud countdown. The second was the mini-movie that ended in white pushing up. Third one has the deer panteth for the water. No, there's no water and there's not a deer in sight. However, I think we can give our people some credit. Give them some intelligence. There doesn't have to be literal. We don't have to make our media so literal. I'm much more drawn to the idea that our 3 pieces of media so far have worked together and made sense together. The drapes match the pillows, match the cushions. That's the idea I'm going for here as we build our presentation. So in the three pieces of media, I haven't been literal, but I've started to weave the story together. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross. I took the idea of color sampling, moving the text from 5 years ago, put it in with still a subtle motion background, but it still is following the narrative. It's following the story of the media. The first 4 have followed that path. Move on to the next one, when I survey. Again, not necessarily so literal. I kind of have an abstract artist representation of Jesus over here with a subtle motion. They both complement each other. And I'm still in that bluish, whitish hue, that family within the story. Here's my next slide. This is, I like to call media silence. In this case, communion was a great place to use it. A place to take everything off the screen and focus on something else. I think doing that does two things for your presentation. One, this is the first time during the whole class that everyone's looking at me. It was easy to take the focus off the presentation and put it on to what's going on. You know, there's always a point in your service where the focus could be somewhere else, and you're still using media to do that. You're using lack of media, but it's still media that you've trained your eye here. We take it away, we can immediately train your eye somewhere else. Communion, in this case, maybe no one's on stage because the eye should be somewhere else altogether. The other thing that media silence does for you is when you bring it back, it makes the media all that much more powerful in its communication. It lets people, it gives you kind of that moment. If you hold your breath for a long time, it, makes you appreciate breathing again. It's that concept of being able to see the media. And what I like to do is bookend my silence with the same background, less to contemplate, less to think about, bring them out of that silence gradually. It's the same background that we went to silence in, just a different song when we came out of it. I'm using about 50% less media in this presentation as well. Less media, not overwhelming. So Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. Move into how deep the Father's love for us. You'll notice it's the same background we used earlier. I'm starting to wrap up my story. And the message is also the same background. Less to process, less to contemplate. My submission is that this outline, with 50% less media, is 20 times more powerful in its communication than a presentation that uses twice as much media and is all over the board in different types of backgrounds. Less, I think, literally is more in this case. So my challenge to you with this class, when you go back and you start building your presentations, or if you haven't started yet, to start thinking about it, is don't think of, when you look at your song list, don't necessarily think of each song as individual things. I guarantee your worship pastor isn't doing that. The pastor's not doing that. The person who decorated the room didn't do that. This part's not decorated different than this part, or if it is, you wish it wasn't. And so why do we do that with the media? Instead, look at the whole story. Liturgical calendar. Your coloring, maybe if you're a liturgic church, you may have coloring based on the calendar. Seasons. Yellows might be more interesting in summer. Blues or grays might be more interesting in winter. There's a bigger narrative with your media that I'd like to challenge everyone to think about, not just the song Amazing Grace or How Sweet, whatever other song they used on there. Yeah, those songs. So yeah, is there any questions on that? I mean,